We're now going to look at example 3 on sampling. It says a stratified sample was taken of men, women and children in a shopping centre. In the sample there were 9 men, 12 women and 9 children. It says in the shopping centre there were 80 women altogether. Part A says how many men were in the shopping centre. Now, this is a stratified sampling question because you have a population, which is the total number of people in the shopping centre, and that population is divided up into groups. You have a group of men, a group of women, and a group of children. So that means the sampling formula applies to each group within the population. So before I even attempt to do anything, it's always a good idea just to write the sampling formula down. So remember, sampling formula is SSG, that's the sample size of the group, over the sample size, and that's equal to the population size of the group over the population size. Now, in part A, it says how many men were in the shopping centre. So if we go to the group involving men first of all, how many men were actually in the shopping centre? So what they're asking us for here is the population size of the men's group. So do we know the other 3 quantities? So do we know the overall population size? Well, if you look in the question, it talks about a stratified sample was taken in the sample. There were 9 men, 12 women and 9 children. So these are only the sample sizes of each group. And then it says in the shopping centre there were 80 women altogether, so we know the population size of the women's group. But the bad news is we don't know the overall population size. So for the group of men, we're trying to work out the population size of that group, but we don't even know the overall population size. So straight away there's 2 unknowns. We do know the sample size because that would be this adding all the individual sample size of each group together, and we do know the sample size for the group of men because it would be 9, but we can't use the formula yet because there's 2 unknowns for the men's group. So what we need to do is we need to go to a different group where we can work out the population size and we'll know the other 3 quantities. And that's where this random bit of information comes in. It says in the shopping centre there were 80 women altogether. That just seems very, very random. And then there's no more women mentioned in the question. So the temptation here would be to go to the women's group, write down the sampling formula, and hopefully we'll know 3 out of the 4 quantities, and then we can cross multiply to get the population size, because we need that before we work out the population size for the men's group. So let's go to the women's group. We've got our sampling formula, and what we want from the women's group is the population size, because we need that then so we can use it in the men's group. Do we know the other 3 quantities? Well, the population size of the women's group is 80. We're told that there actually are 80 women altogether in that group. The sample size of the women's group is 12. And the overall sample size is the sum of all the individual group sample sizes. So that's going to be 9 plus 12 plus another 9. So let's sub all the quantities in now and work out the population size. So we're going to have 12 over, we've got 9 plus 9 is 18, 18 plus 12 is going to give us 30. So 12 over 30, and that's equal to 80 over the population size. So straight away we're in business here because we know 3 out of 4 quantities. So we're going to cross multiply to get the population size. So we've got 12 multiplied by the population size, 12 PS, and that's equal to 80 multiplied by 30. So that's going to give us 2,400. And then we're going to divide both sides by the coefficient of the population size. And then do our cancelling. 12s cancel over here and we're just left with the overall population size. and that's equal to 2,400 divided by 12, which is going to give us 200. So that is the total number of people that's in the shopping centre. And again, we need this. Now we can go back to part A. It says how many men were in the shopping centre. So if we go back now to the men's group, we should actually know 3 out of the 4 quantities. So SSG over SS equals PSG over PS. So we're looking for how many men were in the shopping centre. So we're looking for the population size of the men's group. That's what we want. And we should now know the other 3 quantities. The overall population size is 200. That's what we've just worked out. The sample size of the men's group is 9. And again, the overall sample size is just all the individual sample sizes of each group added together, which again will be 30. And then we're going to sub all of those into the formula and then cross multiply. So we're going to get 9 over 30. And that's equal to PSG, population size of the men's group, over 200. So again, cross multiply. So 200 multiplied by 9, that's going to give us 1,800, and that's equal to 30 PSG. We're now going to divide both sides by the coefficient of PSG. So 30s are going to cancel on the right. And then 1,800 divided by 30 is going to give us, well, it goes into itself once, goes in 60 times. So we're going to be left with 60 is equal to PSG. So that's our answer. So that is the actual population size of the men's group. In other words, that's how many men are actually in the shopping centre. Okay, part B is similar. It says how many children were in the shopping centre. So part B, children. So again, write out our sampling formula for the children. So SSG over SS equals PSG over PS. Now, we want to work out the actual population size of the children's group. So again, that's what we want. PSG. And hopefully we should know the 3 other quantities. The population size, remember, is 200. We've worked that out already. That's the total number of people in the shopping centre. And again, the overall sample size is the same as before. It's 30. And then finally, the sample size for the children's group. Well, that's given in the question. If we go back to the question, it says in the sample there were 9 children. So again, we're just subbing in 9 for the sample size. So the rest now is really easy. Just sub in all the numbers and cross multiply. So we've got 9 over 30, and that's equal to PSG over 200. Cross multiply. So we're going to have 1,800, and that's equal to 30 PSG. And then divide both sides by the coefficient of PSG. So we've got 1800 over 30, and that's equal to 30 PSG over 30. 30's cancel on the right, and again 1800 divided by 30, so that's going to give us 1, and then that's going to give us 60. So again, we're going to be left with 60 equals PSG. So in other words, that is the actual population size of the children's group. And it also makes sense because if you go back to the sample, go back to the information in the question, it said there's 9 men in the sample and there's 9 children. So there's the same number of men and children in the sample. So that means there's going to be the same number of men in the actual population as there are children in the population. So it makes perfect sense. So the 2 examples we've just done today are a bit harder because you actually have to go to a different group where you know 3 out of the 4 quantities to work out an unknown quantity, and then that allows you now to go to the relevant groups that are asked in the question to work out another unknown.